"I'll give you my car if you can translate this," said the millionaire CEO, laughing at his cleaning lady. But what she did next left him completely stunned. Subscribe to the channel to receive stories that will touch your heart. And stay until the end to see what the cleaning lady did. The morning sky reflected golden hues on the mirrored glass of the towering Harrington Global Building, one of Chicago's most respected and feared corporations. From the outside, the structure looked like a jewel of concrete and steel. Inside, it was a temple of cold decisions, where excessive luxury contrasted sharply with the silent tension of those who worked there. The 38th floor, reserved for high-level meetings, impressed with its crystal chandeliers and dark oak tables that gleamed under the bright light. It was a place where careers were shaped in seconds, or destroyed in minutes. At the heart of this empire was Jonathan Harrington, the millionaire CEO and heir to a long dynasty of bankers. Unlike his ancestors, who carried a certain discreet elegance, Jonathan flaunted power with an almost childish arrogance. His suits were tailored, his words sharp as blades, and his greatest pleasure was turning others into objects of ridicule. In his eyes, a person's value was measured by the diploma on the wall or the car parked in the company garage. Those who didn't meet his standard were invisible or worse, easy targets for his cruel provocations. But that morning, fate was preparing to turn the tables in a way no one could imagine. In the corridor, walking with quiet but firm steps, was Elena Ramírez, a 44-year-old cleaning lady who had left the small town of Puebla, Mexico, to start a new life in the United States. Humble, dedicated, and almost always overlooked, Elena had become part of the background of that glass and steel company. Little did anyone know, however, that beneath her simple uniform was a woman with hidden talents and a life story capable of challenging even the most powerful man in the room. Jonathan Harrington was not just the name behind Harrington Global. He was the very symbol of the power the company exuded. From an early age, he had cultivated the image of an unyielding man, someone who tolerated no weakness and took pride in forging winners through the fire of humiliation. His executives knew that every meeting was a test of psychological endurance. Either they withstood his cutting sarcasm or became the target of ridicule amidst forced laughter. What few realized was that Jonathan derived pleasure from this. To him, destroying someone's confidence was a way to reaffirm his superiority. Seated in his brown leather chair, with the Chicago skyline reflected in the windows behind him, Jonathan felt untouchable. His Swiss watch gleamed like a crown on his wrist, and his Italian shoes shone under the light, as if even the floor he walked on were obliged to acknowledge him. It was this very brilliance that intimidated anyone who dared to face him directly. Many quietly whispered that he was a king without a crown, but everyone knew that behind the closed doors of that room, his word carried more weight than any counsel. He didn't need to shout to instill fear. A sarcastic smile was enough. Despite the flawless facade, there was a void in Jonathan that no one dared to mention. He surrounded himself with powerful people but avoided any bond that might reveal vulnerability. Friends, he had none. Confidence? He had never allowed it. His personal life was a barren terrain, filled only with contracts, numbers, and silent competitions with other magnates. What haunted him most, though he would never admit it, was the fear of being seen as ordinary. Perhaps that was why he constantly felt the need to prove that everyone around him was smaller than he was. And it was this very desire for reaffirmation that would soon lead him to a memorable mistake. While the executives of Harrington Global moved through the corridors in expensive suits and designer heels, Elena Ramírez glided silently, almost like a shadow. In her navy blue uniform, pushing a cleaning cart filled with supplies, she seemed to be part of the company's furniture, noticed only when a task went undone. Few knew her name. To most, she was simply the cleaning lady. Yet Elena carried within her a dignity that no arrogant glance could steal. She did not see herself as invisible, but as someone bearing heavy burdens while quietly nurturing her dreams. Hailing from Puebla, Mexico, Elena had left behind a life of hardship to start anew in the United States. Alone with 2 teenage daughters, she worked 2 jobs to provide not just food on the table, but also the hope of a better future for them. The English she had painstakingly learned during cold, lonely nights had become essential for her survival. But there was more. Elena spoke native Spanish, had a working knowledge of French learned from donated books, and enough Italian to communicate. A skill passed down from a grandmother who had emigrated decades earlier. This linguistic treasure remained hidden, kept like an ace up her sleeve that she rarely needed to reveal. Despite the weight of her routine, Elena found beauty in small details. The sunrise reflecting off the buildings, the shy smile of an employee greeting her, even the soft music she discreetly listened to on her phone while cleaning empty corridors. In those moments, she remembered who she was beyond the uniform. But most of the time, the city and the company treated her as invisible, a being on the margins of a world that worshipped only numbers and titles. What no one realized, however, was that this very woman, considered secondary, was about to become the protagonist of an unforgettable scene. That morning, the Harrington Global Conference Room was packed. Executives and investors debated numbers, contracts, and strategies, while Jonathan Harrington, standing tall with his usual air of authority, conducted the meeting like a masterful orchestra conductor. Suddenly, a trivial slip, a document in French that no one present could understand, became the trigger for yet another of his cruel displays of power. Jonathan held up the paper, laughed mockingly, and taunted, "Does anyone here know how to translate this? Or should I hire someone more competent?" The response was an awkward, heavy silence. It was in moments like these that he took pleasure in humiliating others. At that very moment, Elena discreetly entered to clean the floor near the door. Most of the room ignored her presence, but not Jonathan. His eyes were always scanning for an easy target. He watched her for a few seconds, a mocking smile slowly forming on his face. Well, our cleaning lady is here," he said loudly, drawing nervous chuckles from the room. Walking up to her, he held the document high and, with a challenging tone, declared, "If you can translate this, I'll give you my car." The sarcastic comment echoed through the room with muffled laughter from the executives, who exchanged incredulous glances at the audacious provocation. The atmosphere, already tense, transformed into a stage for public humiliation. Jonathan, confident that the scene would serve as yet another proof of his superiority, crossed his arms and waited for the woman's expected awkward silence. Elena, still holding her cleaning cloth, slowly lifted her gaze, feeling the weight of every eye upon her. Inside, a whirlwind of emotions churned. Indignation, fear, and above all, a silent courage long hidden beneath layers of resignation. What for Jonathan was just another cruel joke, for her would become an opportunity to reveal who she truly was. The room fell into complete silence, as if everyone present held their breath at the same time. Jonathan Harrington stood tall, confident, expecting to see Elena's failure reflected in her eyes. His executives, who had been laughing moments before, now watched with anticipation. Some felt a spark of curiosity, others the discomfort of witnessing something entirely out of the ordinary. The luxury and ostentation of Harrington Global sharply contrasted with the silent tension spreading through the vast conference room, touching every corner. Elena took a deep breath, trying to calm her racing heart. Each beat seemed to echo inside her, reminding her of all the difficult nights spent studying English, French, and Italian. and of the effort it took to maintain her dignity while balancing her life and raising her daughters. She knew that this moment could change not only Jonathan's perception of her, but also the way everyone in the company saw her. Yet, despite the fear threatening to take over, there was something stronger. The certainty that she could no longer remain invisible in front of that arrogant man. Time seemed to slow down. Every second stretched the tension in the air. Jonathan leaned slightly forward, a smug smile on his lips, certain that the laughter would be inevitable. But Elena, steady and composed, lifted the document and met the CEO's eyes, radiating unexpected confidence. She didn't need to prove anything to herself. She knew her own worth. And in that instant, even the most skeptical in the room began to sense that something extraordinary was about to happen. Something capable of silencing even the most powerful man in Harrington Global. Elena took another deep breath and began translating the document with a clarity and precision that astonished everyone. Words that seemed incomprehensible to seasoned executives flowed naturally from her mouth as she switched between French, English, and even occasional Italian phrases that no one in the room had expected. Each sentence was delivered with calm authority, revealing not only her skill but also an intelligence few had imagined existed beneath that simple uniform. The entire room fell into absolute silence. Jonathan's mocking laughter had vanished, replaced by an expression of sheer disbelief. Jonathan watched in stunned silence, unable to conceal the shock spreading across his face. The arrogance he had always carried seemed to melt away in front of the woman he had considered inferior just minutes before. He tried to murmur something, but Elena's confidence and composure left him speechless. What had seemed like a mere joke to him had turned into an unmistakable display of talent and courage. The executives and investors present, who had earlier chuckled awkwardly, now exchanged astonished glances, unable to believe what they were witnessing. With each word translated, Elena was not only completing the challenge, but also building an invisible bridge between her dignity and the respect of everyone in the room. Her posture was calm, almost elegant, and her steady gaze conveyed a clear message. Never underestimate someone based solely on appearance or social standing. This unexpected turn was not merely about translation. It was about recognition, respect, and the quiet power of someone carrying talent, wisdom, and courage even when the world insists on ignoring them. And in that moment, Jonathan Harrington learned a lesson he would never forget. Jonathan Harrington's arrogant smile vanished completely, replaced by an expression that mixed shock, disbelief, and a hint of embarrassment. He tried to maintain his posture, lift his chin, and regain control, but every word Elena spoke seemed to dismantle the walls of arrogance he had carefully built over the years. His presence, which had once commanded fear and respect, now seemed fragile in the face of the cleaning lady's audacity and competence. For the first time, he felt small within his own room of power, a place he had always considered his kingdom. The executives around him could not contain their looks of astonishment. Some whispered to one another, while others simply observed, absorbing every detail of the scene. Elena remained calm and confident, as if she had every right to be there and to be acknowledged. Her steady posture contrasted sharply with the sudden flush on Jonathan's face. He wanted to laugh, look away, or interrupt, but there was nothing he could do to reverse the impact of the moment. Each translated sentence, every precise nuance of the words, made it clear that this challenge was not just about a car. It was about respect, dignity, and breaking all preconceived expectations. Inside, Jonathan felt something he rarely experienced: vulnerability. He had never been challenged so directly, especially by someone he had considered invisible. This unexpected humiliation, though silent, reverberated through every fiber of his being. For the first time, he understood the power of hidden talent and quiet perseverance. This experience was not just a lesson for him. It was an opportunity to reflect on his own arrogance. At the same time, Elena was showing everyone that true strength does not come from wealth, titles, or status, but from courage, knowledge, and dignity. Silence took over the room. The executives and investors, who had nervously laughed at the challenge moments before, now looked at Elena with genuine respect. This woman, once considered invisible and unassuming, demonstrated a skill none of them had imagined existed. Her eyes shone with determination and intelligence, and every gesture she made conveyed confidence and dignity. Suddenly, the room that had been the stage for the CEO's arrogance transformed into a scene of recognition, and everyone realized they had underestimated someone extraordinary. Jonathan, still perplexed, felt the weight of respect turning against him. That collective admiration, silent yet palpable, began to erode the invincible image he had so carefully cultivated. He realized that, although he owned Harrington Global, he did not hold absolute control in that room. Elena had not only completed the challenge, she had earned the attention, respect, and admiration of everyone around her. Each executive, each investor, witnessed a clear lesson. Intelligence, talent, and courage can emerge from anyone, even from where least expected. No one should ever be judged by appearances. The atmosphere of the meeting had completely changed. Jonathan's arrogant glow faded, making room for humility and reflection. Elena, meanwhile, remained calm, almost invisible again, but this time carrying the recognition of the entire room. That collective admiration was not fleeting. It was a subtle yet permanent transformation in everyone's perception. For the first time, the cleaning lady truly felt seen, and her presence was noticed not just for what she did, but for what she represented. Talent, courage, and dignity in its purest form. Jonathan Harrington sank heavily into his chair, trying to process the impact of what had just happened. Every word Elena spoke reverberated in his mind. Like a melody he didn't know how to silence. He, the man who believed he controlled everything and everyone, felt for the first time the weight of his own arrogance. This lesson, silent yet devastating, showed that underestimating someone based on appearance or social status could become his greatest mistake. The humiliation was not only in his public failure but in the awakening of a truth he could no longer ignore. Talent and dignity do not choose class or title. The executives, still absorbed in the scene, noticed the sudden shift in Jonathan's posture. He, who had always commanded the room with irony and superiority, now looked visibly uncomfortable. His gestures, once confident, became cautious. The tone of his voice, once sharp, had lost its edge. Elena, with her calm and precise demeanor, had challenged not only his authority but also the very perception he had of the world. Jonathan knew he could never treat someone that way again without risking criticism and loss of credibility. Deep inside, Jonathan felt a mix of shame and respect. This woman, whom he had imagined to be inferior, proved that his worldview was flawed. He recognized that his arrogance had long hidden his own insecurity and fear of being mediocre in front of capable people. For the first time, he reflected on the impact of his actions and words, understanding that true power lies not in humiliating others, but in inspiring, listening, and valuing those around him. And in that moment, Elena didn't just silence the CEO. She forced him to see reality in a way he would never forget. The silence that followed Elena's challenge seemed to fill every corner of Harrington Global. Jonathan Harrington, still seated, watched the woman who had defied his arrogance and earned the respect of everyone in the room. For the first time, the CEO realized that wealth, power, and titles were not enough to measure a person's worth. True greatness lay in courage, talent, and dignity. Qualities Elena had displayed naturally, even under pressure and under the gaze of critical eyes. Elena returned to her work with her usual serenity, but now carried something invisible and priceless, the recognition of an entire room and the certainty that she would never be underestimated again. Executives and investors, deeply impacted, began to see the company differently, realizing that true strength does not reside solely in numbers or positions, but in the ability to recognize and value hidden talent. Jonathan, meanwhile, felt challenged to reflect on his own behavior and attitudes, acknowledging that the lesson he had received from this humble woman would never be forgotten. And so, that morning became a milestone of learning, respect, and personal growth for everyone present. The story of Elena Ramírez proved that even those considered invisible can shine extraordinarily when courage and talent come together, and that a person's true wealth lies in their dignity, determination, and ability to stand out even in the face of others' arrogance. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, turn on the notification bell so you won't miss any new videos, and of course, leave a like, because it helps the channel continue bringing emotional stories like this. Thank you so much for your continued support.